Namaskar, everyone. I am Arpan Chakravarti, Assistant Director for Strategy at Alexis Group. And today we have gathered at this August event of our Alexis Dialogues. And today we have with ourselves Mr. Robin Banerjee and Miss Manisha Matthew. So we will be discussing the book in hand, Who Blunders and How, the Dumb Side of Corporate World. So, mistakes, whether you are in a corporate world or whether you are an entrepreneur trying to make it on your own, you always need to understand and recognize that there will be failures, there will be mistakes which will be committed, and one needs to acknowledge that as well. So, but you, but when, but when once you commit the mistakes, you have to adapt, you have to be better at it, and try to rectify that as soon as possible, because as I do believe that there is very little learning in the successes of our life, then we learn more from the mistakes that we commit. And as you know, the best part is that it comes straight from a person who has been in the corporate world for more than 35 years. Currently, he is the MD of Capri Hunts India Limited. He has served in several multinational companies, global corporations, and he has been in a senior level positions, leadership positions at Hindustan Unilever, ArcelorMittal, Thomas Cook, SR Steel, Suzlon Energy. Well, we welcome you, Robin, sir. Along with him, we have our Miss Manisha Matthew, a very talented publishing profession and who has close to 2 decades of experience in publishing industry. She is currently an executive editor at Sage Publication, and she is a PhD scholar at SMC University. So, without much ado, we welcome all of you here. And let me ask a first question to Mr. Robin, sir. Sir, as usual, the first question will be, why did you decide to write this book?
The first question, obviously, Arpan, you've asked the most difficult one. Why this book? The answer, in my view, was very simple. When I was looking for, normally I look for new ideas as to what is it that one can add value to the people in general. And the books which you will see around are all on successes. Who talks about failures? How can you succeed if you don't fail? None of us have learned to walk unless we have failed and fell down several times, perhaps numerous times. Many of us know how to ride a bicycle. How many times have we floundered when we learned how to actually ride that? Many of us have done algebra and mathematics in the school. How many times did you fail in your formula, in writing or making the right numbers? So failures are the stepping stone for success. But unfortunately, as a human mind, whenever there is a failure, we keep it under the carpet. And when the success comes, that's all tom-tommed about. Mistake may be a failure may be a mistake. However, many times a failure comes even if there is no mistake. But mistakes necessarily leads to a failure. The second thing is mistakes could be something which you planned for. A mistake could also happen which is unplanned for. I'm driving a car. I didn't know the accelerator doesn't work properly. And obviously, I perhaps stepped on the accelerator instead of the gear, or the brake or the gear, and the brake instead of the gear, the accelerator, and there's a huge mistake. There could be an accident. Uncalled for, did not plan for. We could actually do a mistake by planning it. For instance, a thief goes to steal something. He obviously knows I'm committing a mistake, an error, a gross fraud. And obviously, The outcome could be positive. The thief could actually steal and make money, or it could be negative. He could be imprisoned. He could be caught and imprisoned. So, given this background that there is no or little, very little literature on failures or mistakes, I thought if everyone talks about success, why not talk about mistakes and see whether one can do something about it? And I was happy to see that there are so many types of mistakes which all of us are doing, especially in a business world. And if we can all put it together, maybe it will be an interesting read for all of us. And more importantly, if we know about how others committed some mistakes and blunders, maybe we can try to avoid them. Why fall into the same pit which others have fallen into? That was the background for this book.
Okay. So my next question would be to Manisha ma'am. So ma'am, this book talks about mistakes, something which is very nowadays looked down upon, and it is very unconventional for organizations or publishing house to accept such books on mistakes rather than focusing more on successes. So, ma'am, what was the thinking, or why did Sage Publication commission this book?
Firstly, thanks, Arpan, for inviting me. Thanks to Alexis Strategy Group as well. And yeah, so it was actually a simple decision to take this book. I'll tell you why. Because we all make mistakes, mistakes happen. And it's when we don't learn from those mistakes that we make a bigger mistake. And it's not really important for us to learn. I mean, it's not really necessary for us to learn from our own mistakes. We can learn from others' mistakes as well, like Robin said. You don't have to make all the mistakes in the world and then learn from them. Please learn from other people's mistakes and do not make those, errors of judgment again. And just like Robin said as well, that there are a lot of people writing about successes. There are a lot of people, putting out success stories. But I think it's equally important to put out stories of failures as well, so that people know that the journey towards success, to reaching where you want to be, is riddled with failures. And only if you navigate all of those, can you reach where you really want to reach. And there is no success story where somebody has had no failure and they've reached right to success. Having said that, in the corporate world, there are a lot of things that happen. There are a lot of things that happen. Blunders happen, which people need to be aware of. That we used to say ignorance is bliss, but it's not anymore. You need to be aware of the kind of blunders that are happening. You need to be aware of the kind of mistakes other people make that can land you in trouble. And I think this book is a very good attempt at uncovering a lot of those mistakes. Robin has analyzed a lot of those mistakes. He's brought forward what people in general should be aware of, so that they don't become they don't get they don't fall into the same trap. So I think it was an easy decision that way, because it was a very well written manuscript, and Sage would like to publish more and more books that bring about awareness for the general public.
So it's more of better to learn from others' experience than to commit the same mistake on your own, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yes. So, Robin sir, next question is for you. You have written, this book has been one on a next level insight on the corporate world, and it specifically talks about there's a particular line which says change fast or succumb faster. And you talk a lot about the airlines in this particular book, specifically domestically and internationally, from the famous examples of Pan Am, Kingfisher, and Air Indigo. So why did you decide to write on that particular line, and what has been the inspiration that you had from writing a case study on these particular airlines? And what do you think the viewers at this point of time can learn from these particular mistakes which were being committed earlier?
This book, Who Blunders Are How, has more than 300 live stories. Stories how people have floundered, the stories of how they've really made blunders out of their vision. Let me take this example which you just cited, Kingfisher and Indigo. Maybe it will make a point to my listeners, to my viewers today. Very strangely, Kingfisher and Indigo started in the same time, 2002, 2003. Come 2008, 2009, many of the viewers who are here, you would be realizing that if you were supposed to fly, you would prefer a Kingfisher flight. I'm quite sure you would have told your administration manager or yourself, let's take a Kingfisher flight. That's better. Indigo, oh, chota flight. You know, this is small leg space. You have to buy your food. Kingfisher, wonderful, flashy, beautiful people around, large seat. There is a video in front of you. And the worst of all, but perhaps, and the best of it, is you would also get a gift, some pens perhaps to carry home. So Kingfisher was a preferred airlines. Indigo, Kingfisher started at the same time. Come 2008, 2009, Kingfisher became the most preferred airlines for any passenger to fly. Come 2012, Kingfisher became bankrupt. The last flight took off in July 2012. You'll be surprised to know that in 2012, Indigo declared the highest profit. Same industry airlines, same market India, same passengers, people who want to fly, same service. One goes belly up, the other declares highest profit. What else could have been a better example than this as to what the hell the blunder would have happened in Kingfisher? Mr. Vijay Mallya obviously took the view of giving us the most flashy airlines. So he was under the impression that if you give a flashy airlines, wonderful service, great food, broader seats, great leg room, people will flock to it. What did Indigo do? Indigo said, no. I don't want to spend money on all this nonsense. Why does people fly? People fly because they want to go from place A to place B and they want to reach on time. My only aim is to provide this on-time arrival to my passengers. So what does a customer want? On-time arrival. Kingfisher forgot about it. Kingfisher thought about the experience while flying. Indigo thought about it, the ultimate objective of landing on time. The outcome, Kingfisher goes bankrupt, Indigo declares the highest profit. So the biggest mistake many businesses do, they forget about what the customers are looking for. They think what I am thinking, I am an entrepreneur, what I am looking for. I am not important. Customer is. Let me give you another example. Very strangely again, 2003, 2004. Yes Bank got the banking license to start at the bank. And the same year, Kotak Mahindra Bank also got the banking license to start the bank. 2020, Kotak Mahindra Bank is one of the most profitable and largest bank in the country, starting at the same time. Yes Bank almost went belly up for Reserve Bank of India, Government of India to intervene and save the bank. Have you ever questioned why? Bank started at the same time. Yes Bank all over, advertisements here and there, Rana Kapoor shouting, screaming about his wonderful bank. And yet, just see the outcome. One goes belly up almost. Government had to save. Kotak Mahindra Bank obviously is one of the best and the most profitable banks today. What was the mistake here? Kotak Mahindra Bank gave, the business of banking is to give loans. And you have to give loans where you believe you can recover the loans. The taste of a banking is the non-performing asset. That means for every 100 rupee of loan you give, how much percentage of that rupee will not come back? That means your customer will not pay. More or less, the benchmark is 4%. That means for every 100 rupees you lend, 4% does not come back, 96 rupees comes back. Now, this same number for Kotak Mahindra Bank is about 2 rupees, which doesn't come back NPA. Whereas for Yes Bank, it became 10%. So Yes Bank could not recover their loans back, the loans they gave, whereas Kotak Mahindra gave loans where they got back. Again, what has happened? Yes Bank forgot about the customer, the quality of the customer. They gave loans to Tom, Dick, and Harry, only to realize all the Tom and the Dick and the Harry did not give the loan back. But when Kotak Mahindra Bank gave them a loan to A, B, and C, they ensured that all A, B, and C will have the ability to pay the money back. They forgot the customer. So a big mistake which most and many entrepreneurs or businesses do, they forget the customer, what the customer wants. And they build their vision and their business with what they themselves want. That's the story.
Okay, sir. So the customer is the king, right? At the end of the day. So, one of the most interesting observation that I made, and you have written about it, is that you say that 3 out of 4 mergers and acquisition fall on their face. It may be a very seductive strategy to jumpstart growth in the corporate world, and but it isn't very sustainable, as you have written, and it is actually every company's dream to acquire another company, right? So why have you written otherwise, sir, that on this particular issue? And you have also cited the example of Microsoft and Nokia as to, so what was the problem there, and what could have been done to make it right?
Most businesses, or in fact, all businesses, I presume, have the vision and the dream of growing. Is there any businessman who does not want to grow? That cannot be. So you can grow by putting up a new factory, by putting up a new office. You can also grow by acquiring a company, by acquiring another office. For instance, let's say the Sage Publications wants to grow, Sage can acquire another publisher and they will immediately double their turnover, or they will slowly add one office to another. Today they are in India, they are of course a global company, they can also add to other offices in various other countries. Now, what's the best way of growing? Is it to start a greenfield site, or is it to acquire a company? Most businessmen feel that to acquire is the fastest way to succeed. 7 out of 10 acquisitions in the world has failed. Every year, $2 trillion of mergers and acquisition takes place. By the way, the GDP of India is about $2.7, $2.8 trillion. So the size of India's GDP is the global mergers and acquisition market. And 7 out of 10 fails. First is, why does it fail? I think that's very important. And number 2, I'll tell you quickly what happened to the Nokia Microsoft example, which you cited. Let me tell you why it fails. Think of an Indian marriage. Arpan, you are young, maybe you're not married.
No, I'm not.
When a marriage takes place in an Indian home, or for the matter, any home, the bahu comes home. The bahu that the lady loves the same man as the mother-in-law is loving. The mother-in-law and the bahu loves the same man. Yet, 7 out of 10, I presume, there is a fight between the bahu and the mother-in-law. Have you asked ourselves, why is it so? If the objectives are the same, and yet they fight, the reason behind that is the bahu, the new girl which has come home, thinks that this new mother-in-law, the mother-in-law who is my mother, will give me a lot of love. She will do a lot of things for me. I've come new home. She will take care of me. She will give me my food. She will cook for me or whatever. The mother-in-law feels, now the bahu comes, a daughter-in-law comes, now she will make everything for me. She will now cook for me. She will clean. She will put all my clothes together. So the bahu is thinking, I will take something from the mother-in-law. The mother-in-law is thinking, I will take something from the bahu. Both of them are thinking how to take. But just reverse thinking. If bahu thinks, I will give all my love to my mother, the newfound mother, which is the mother-in-law, and the mother-in-law feels this is the newfound bahu, which is my daughter, my son's wife is my daughter, I will give all my love and not think of what I will take from her, the situation will differ. which means there is an acquisition. The new home acquired a bahu, and the new home must think of giving the love, giving whatever I need to do rather than taking. Mergers and acquisition fails precisely this reason. When a company acquires another, let's say company A acquires company B, company A is thinking, how can I take something from company B? Which means that, let's say a company acquires another company and thinks, okay, how can I take that technology? Let me give you a little example. Suzlon Energy took up, acquired RE Power in a German company. And there was a belief that, is it possible that somehow I can take the technology of the German company and use it in India? Whenever there is this thought that a company which is acquiring, that I must take something from him, the M&A fails. I'll give you a success story. Have you been to an Indian restaurant, and a top-class restaurant, you will be given a Himalayan water. Mostly you will get an Himalayan water from the Tata beverages. So the Himalayan water, the Tatas took over this company, which is in the foothills of Himalayas, which is called actually, I think, Mount Everest Minerals Water Corporation or something, Water Limited, I think. When the company took over, the first thing Tatas did is not to take the technology of how to bottle the water. They said that I have taken this small company, let me give the distribution muscle to this small company. And the moment that Tata's Beverages, which is the tea and coffee giant, gave the distribution muscle to the Himalayas, now you see what has happened. Himalayas is everywhere. So when Tata's took over Himalaya Water, they thought about giving the distribution rather than thinking of taking their technology, how to make mineral water. Take the example of Microsoft and Nokia. Microsoft acquired Nokia. This is in 2014. And when Microsoft acquired Nokia, they said at that point of time, there was a software ecosystem which was being not monitored, but taken over by Google. Google was the overwhelming software giant. And that the ecosystem was running on Google and Apple. There was also a hardware system running on Samsung and Apple. That means if you wanted to buy a mobile, you would always buy an Apple or Samsung in 2014, 2015. What Microsoft thought by taking over Nokia, that Nokia is a hardware company, Microsoft is a software company. So I will now create a third ecosystem. By taking the business away from the hardware giants of Nokia, Samsung and Apple. I will take away the software business from Google, and I will create a third ecosystem. They were thinking how to take away, how to snatch the businesses of the two ecosystems and create a third ecosystem. They could have actually thought that I will give my power, Microsoft and Nokia's power, to these two ecosystems, and then I will start growing. They just reverse thought. They thought of taking instead of giving. The long and short is most M&As fail because they do not think of giving, but they think of taking. Take the money, take the technology, take the market, take the people. That's the end, and that's the blunder they all do.
That's really insightful, sir. Sir, as you said here, the debts are lifeline to a business. This is the chapter 3 of your book, and you specifically talk that debts are trap for businesses. If not properly handled, it can be the same reason for a company to bankruptcy, right? And like everybody wants to take in the money, and expand like their own operations. So why do you call this as a debt trap? Rather than why do you think that it cannot be taken otherwise? Like it can be used to increase your operations, have your own expansion. And why do you think that particularly you have given a lot of examples regarding how the big names in the industry, they have perished because of this particular debt trap? So, sir, can you please explain us on that particular point, sir?
Sometimes we talk about death trap. Debt is a death trap. Death trap. Debt, you see, there are two ways of getting money to start to run a business. Only two ways. There is no third way. One way of getting money to run a business is equity. Equity is owner's fund. The second way of running a business is by borrowing money, which is debt. When you borrow money, it is called debt. When it is owner's fund, it is called equity. There is no third way of getting money. As and when a third way is invented, that gentleman or a lady will get the Nobel Prize of economics. And I'm waiting for that. So there are only two ways, debt and equity. Debt is actually easy money. Why? Because own money, why should I put my own money? I will go to the bank and get some money. And if I put in a light list proposal, a dream in front, I will do this, I will do that, I will conquer the world, the bank will give me money. Now, more nice stories I say, I get more money. Debt is easy money. And that's the trap the businesses fall into. The debt is good as long as you are capable of returning it. The debt is good as long as you're capable of returning it. When you borrow, you have to not only return the principal, but you will also have to return the interest. When you take a debt, they will give you a moratorium of 1 year in terms of principal. Interest, there is normally no moratorium. It depends upon the terms and conditions. But what happens? The interest and principal cannot be paid on time. What will the bankers do? The bankers will start hounding you first, and then they will eventually start taking over your company. So what happens, moment you take a debt more than what you can chew, the outcome is miserable. If you look around in the world, if you look around, have you noticed why a company goes bankrupt? Why any company goes bankrupt? There are two reasons. Obviously, many of you will say, no, there are more reasons. Essentially, there are two, and maybe there is only a third reason. The first reason why a company goes bankrupt is because they have taken more debt. You look around and you will find that's the reason. If you see all the companies, have you seen SR Steel has become bankrupt and has been taken over because it had more debt? SR Steel has become ArcelorMittal Steel. Have you seen Bhushan Steel has become Tata Steel? They took too much debt, and therefore that one company is gone. They have been sold away to somebody else. The second reason why a company can go bankrupt, lack of ethics, means fraud. There was a fraud. And because there was a fraud, just imagine Kingfisher, it was also a fraud case. And there are so many other companies which has becoming bankruptcy. Let's say ILFS, it's a fraud case. Company has become bankrupt or company has gone belly up. And the third reason normally would be, say, economic condition, business scenario, changing demand. Honestly speaking, that is not the reason. The third reason gets multiplied because you have taken too much of debt or there was a fraud. If the first and second doesn't exist, chances are that you shall survive even if the economic conditions doesn't work. Examples after examples. What wonderful names of GVK and GMR, they created such wonderful assets around. They're all in such condition because they took just more debt. And as I told you some examples, so debt is easy money. Unfortunately, it is also a debt trap. Be careful.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Now this question will be to Manisha, ma'am. So, ma'am, this will be something that has been a request from every viewers. They have asked, we all know that getting a book published is a big deal, and many don't even get good publishers like Robin Sir did, right? So, how do you think, and what would you suggest the young viewers on our channel as well, and what tips will you be giving them if they want to write or pursue a career publishing?
Yeah. So, whenever there are manuscripts that come to publishing houses, then I think all, people in all publishing houses, all commissioning editors would tell you this, that what we look for is a good book pitch. So there has to be a good pitch uh, with the proposal that the person is sending, which appeals to whoever is reading it. So if it appeals to the commissioning editor, if the commissioning editor can see that this is a good book idea, it's a well thought out idea, there is clarity of thought in what the author is trying to convey. The author has thought through all the angles of, how, why this book, what motivates him or her to write this book, who is the reader, what is the target market, and how he or she is going to help the publisher with marketing and selling of the book. So all of these aspects have to be thought through, and if it is a proposal that kind of relays all of this, then it's an easy decision. Like I said, in the case of Robin, it was an easy decision because he's someone who thinks through all of those things, and he's published with us before, and it was easy to take a decision about going ahead. So we know who the target market is. There is a great book pitch, a great book idea. So these are things that people who want to be authors should keep in mind. The other thing is, of course, that it's a hard job to be an author. It's not easy. When you are writing, you need to research a lot before you actually put pen to paper. Before that, there is a lot of work that goes on. You need to research for many years, and that is true of all good authors. So I'll go back to Robin's case. So when he started writing this book, before that many years he researched and all the putting together all these corporate blunders, mistakes, and made a raw manuscript, and then he polished that manuscript further, and then when it came to us, we polished it further, and a lot of work was done on that manuscript for it to become a great book like this. So authors, budding authors will need to do a lot of research. They will also need to see what is out there in the market in terms of the kind of work that they want to publish. There could be competing works. Read those competing works, get to know more about what has already been published in that area, so that you are not reinventing the wheel. You're not saying things that have already been said. These are some of the important things I would think that any budding author should keep in mind.
So,
Yeah,
sir, there's a
yeah,
follow-up.
yeah,
Yes,
I
yes,
one word.
yes, sir, yes,
My
yes, sir.
bit of it on Manisha's take. Many of you who are on this web or maybe viewing this later on through YouTube, my submission to you is please look at the niche. Please look at a niche. Don't publish a Me Too book. Have you seen when the Amazon came, there was another company which is called which started. But when the Amazon was copied by say one, two, three, four companies, it became Me Too product. Everyone becomes an internet wants to become an internet giant. Similarly, there are so many books which are copied. You will see on HR. I sometimes wonder why everyone wants to write on HR. Human resource management. And there are some maybe 50, 100, 200 books on human resource management. My submission to all of you is that please look for a niche. Perhaps someone else has not written on it, something which you have a question yourself. And then if you have a question and you don't have an answer to a book, that's a niche.
So, Manisha ma'am, do you think that we require experience before for publishing or not? For this is a question for young generation who want to publish, right? They usually do get rejected because they do not have a good pitch, or they do not understand as to how to pitch, right? So do you think experience is required, like how Robin sir at this point of time, he has 35 years of experience in working in corporate field? And what if a young budding writer wants to make a niche of his own?
So experience is good, but experience comes from doing those things, and someone needs to give you that first break, right? So you need to start writing at some point in time. So what I'd say is that we help a lot of first-time authors publish. In fact, about 60-65% of our every year's publishing list would have first-time authors, and it's a, I mean, it's not that since you've not published ever before you can never go on to write a book. There is nothing like that, but I would say that everybody needs to start small. So before writing a book, write articles. There are lots and lots of options these days which were probably not available about a decade ago. Like you can publish articles on LinkedIn, on other social media sites. So do those small things that can then lead you to writing full time as an author. So and like I said, writing has to go with reading, right? So you have to have read a number of books, articles, to be able to write something of your own. So yeah.
So reading is the most essential thing, and apart
Absolutely.
from that, it's a Very important thing we should be taking into mind. So yes. So next question for Robin sir. Sir, you have extensively talked about family businesses in the book, and most businesses in India and specifically abroad, they are usually family businesses. Like, you go to your father, you tell them, I want to start a business. He will give you money if he understands like what you're going to do. The desi puchka wala, or you say the pan wala, anyone, all of them, they are specifically what you call as family businesses. So sir, when you look at all these big names like Walmart, Ford, Suzuki, Mahindra and Bajaj, they all are family businesses. So sir, why do you think that such family businesses should take help from professionals? That will be my first question. And the second question is, why, what is this fallacy that you talk about in this business enterprises that you have mentioned in the book? So
Most businesses are family businesses. Almost all businesses have started as a family businesses, be it Walmart, be it Mercedes, be it Bayer. Maybe two friends started or two family members started, and maybe they have professionalized, floated shares in the market, became a professional company later on. But it ultimately, most remain family, some becomes professional, if I may say so. What happens with family business, which is obviously the largest chunk of all the businesses? Why does some family business succeed and some don't? I think that perhaps is the fallacy. Some, the family business, or for the matter, any business to grow needs 360 degrees of ideas, 360 degrees of inputs, 360 degrees of capabilities. An entrepreneur cannot be a manufacturing manager, a sales manager, an HR manager, an IT manager, a legal manager. How is it possible? An accountant, a finance manager. So the entrepreneur cannot go and run to the bank, cannot think what's the manufacturing, he cannot go and get the sales. So what happens as the entrepreneur keeps growing, he or she feels that I know everything, I can do all. He or she stops thinking that I need help. And it is also possible when he or she looks for help, he or she does not get it at that point of time. The help may not be coming in because perhaps the wrong person is being attempted for, or the entrepreneur does not have money at that point of time. The most important question is why many companies do not, the family businesses do not grow, because they then lack 360 degrees capability. Although many entrepreneurs, or perhaps most entrepreneurs, feel, no, I know it all. This is one. Number two, the fallacy in family businesses that while most businesses are family businesses, you will be surprised to know that family businesses which are successful, only 30%, 3 out of 10 businesses go to the second generation, only 3. And only 10% goes to third generation. And you'll be surprised, only 1% goes into fifth generation. Just imagine a nice business doing extremely well. In the first generation itself, the business will end. The second generation, only 3 will succeed out of the 10 or survive out of 10. Why? Because the fallacy is most of the businesses do not plan for the future. They do not plan that what if, that means the entrepreneur himself or herself does not plan, what if I die? What if I do not exist tomorrow? How will this company continue day after? And that future planning, they're too bogged down by their own self. Most of them do not believe they will ever die, which unfortunately is true. And therefore they do not think of the future. So there are two issues in family businesses. The one, they do not get the 360 degrees views, which perhaps can happen if they take in professionals, appropriate professionals, which is called professionalization of the management. And number two, most of the family businesses do not last the first generation because they do not plan for the future.
Okay, sir. So, sir, this is a follow-up question for you, sir. So, do you think that we have seen these big names in our industry, the Ambani family, right? Mukesh Ambani and Anil Ambani, when they started out, they were 42 billion each. And today, one brother is galloping to 66 billion dollars, and while the other brother is bankrupt. So, do you shall we call it as a classic example of family business fallacy?
Yes. This is a classic example. I told you that the entrepreneurs do not think of the future. The entrepreneurs do not feel that I am going to die. Mr. Dhirubhai Ambani thought he will never die. So he never planned the splitting of his business, of his empire, which was that point of time worth about $85 billion. So they did not think of, he did not think about what will happen if I die. Therefore, when he actually died, the brothers started working because the undivided family, and they started squabbling and fighting with each other. So the first mistake was Mr. Ambani, who created this massive giant, perhaps the most successful business entrepreneurial effort in our country ever taken. He did not think of the future. What was the outcome? One brother, as you rightly mentioned, from so-called 42 or $45 billion is worth, as I'm talking, perhaps it's $88 billion. If it's tomorrow, maybe 100 billion. It all depends upon which day of the year, week you are talking of, based on market capitalization, share market prices. And the other brother has declared himself bankrupt. So one, the entrepreneur did not think of the future. Number two, the two brothers were given businesses amongst themselves, not knowing what they're good at. If daddy would have divided, daddy would have known Mukesh is good for this, Anil is good for that. Accordingly, let me give them my two businesses to different children. But that did not happen. The children started picking up themselves, and based on what perhaps their wives thought that's best for them. And what's the outcome? They got the wrong businesses, they could not manage it, and they all one made a mess of it, and one made a great success of it. So same thing, family fallacy, as I said, not thinking of the future.
Okay. So, sir, there's one particular question that has come from live feed. They say, so it's to you. It says, can business grow inorganically? Is it possible for businesses to grow inorganically and disrupt different sectors across the industry?
Businesses will always grow organically or inorganically, and both sides of the stories you will get successes. The inorganic side of the story is most of the inorganic so-called acquisitions don't get into successes. That's a fact. Now, having read my book, hopefully, the entrepreneurs and most of you who are budding or you are management people will now take into consideration, I should not fall into 3 out of 10, 7 out of 10, I should be out of 3 out of 10, which is success. So of course, there are so many merger M&A success stories. Most of the multinational pharma companies, which you will see today, have become so large because of multiple acquisitions. They keep acquiring companies, small companies, a tablet manufacturing company, a capsule manufacturing company, a vaccination manufacturing company. They will keep on acquiring. But what you have not heard is the failures they have got in that bucket. For every 10 acquisition they have done, 3 have failed, or 3 have succeeded, 4 have succeeded, 5 of them have failed. But still they have become big by acquiring. Today, Mahindra Group in India is so large. They keep acquiring small ancillary industries all the time. Again, Mahindra has become so big, primarily because of acquisition. So inorganic does work, but you have to be careful. As and when this happens, think of give attitude and not of take attitude. Usse le lenge nahi. Think of give attitude, the inorganic will work.
Okay. So, sir, the next question comes from the book, sir. So you specifically talk about this very interesting case that happened with Dabur Honey and Saffola Honey, sir. You specifically talk about quality issues. And, sir, can you throw some light on that particular example, sir?
Yes, one of the mistakes which businesses does is quality. They feel, okay, cost is going up, customers are not willing to pay. So why don't a little tweak in the quality and make little money? Oh, pakar nahi jayenge. They will not be able to figure out. Who will figure out if I make little money by not giving the appropriate quality? It just happened about, I think, 3 weeks or 4 weeks back, that you just got to know that the Central Science Institution got to know actually that they did study on 13 honey in India. They took some samples of 13 honey, and they found 11 of this honey samples is not pure honey, it is sugar. And surprisingly, one of that name includes Dabur. I don't know whether that is true or not, whether they had sugar or not. But the question is, a central scientific institution doing a study, figuring out whether it has sugar or not, what damage would have been done to the brand name? Especially when Dabur was advertising itself, world's number one honey. World's number one honey. They were advertising themselves. Now, there is a huge side effect of this. When I now take my Hajmola, Dabur Hajmola, I'm thinking, what if Dabur Hajmola also has some sugar in it? When I'm taking my Chawanprash, I'm thinking, what if it doesn't have all the 100 ingredients which they are talking about? So there is also a rub-off effect on other brands. So quality is something which is so sacrosanct. Whenever a company started doing shortcut, or have done some shortcut, eventually I think they get caught. So this is a big blunder companies do. What did Dabur do? Perhaps, I hope I'm wrong, but perhaps that's what the newspapers or what that's a public domain says, that they imported sugar from China and they mixed with honey because honey is too expensive. Customers do not pay for pure honey. So therefore, thoda sugar laga dete hain. Now, does it have 10% sugar, 20% sugar, 30% sugar? That's another matter. The moment we have done that, see, it has got caught. Maybe it has taken 20 years to get caught. Maybe it has taken 30 years to get caught. But having got caught, the implications are so severe. You will see lots of examples around you. Have you seen the restaurant businesses? Have you noticed that most of the restaurants which has come up in your area where you stay did not last more than 1 year? Have you asked yourself why these restaurant businesses over here do not last more than 1 year? They start with a big bang. They come up with a lot of stories. They get a nice little chef, great chef. But 1 year is the life of a restaurant, most of the restaurants. Because after 3, 4, 5 months, they realize I'm not making money. It's not good enough. So let me now put little bad oil. Let me use some bad vegetable. Let me shortcut a little bit. And that's the end. They planned wrongly. They should have planned. Restaurants should plan for 1 year cash burn. They know that I'm 1 year, I will incur losses, and automatically the restaurants will stand on their own foot, on their own feet. The mistakes they do, they compromise on quality, and the rest is history.
Sir, there will be a question which we have recently seen in our country. You see, the WhatsApp was changing its privacy terms, and now they have rolled back. They said that we won't be taking up the changes that we were making, and we are not going to delete the accounts, right? So this particular issue made people shift from WhatsApp to Telegram and the other new player in the market, that is the Signal. So do you think that it is wise to bring out a whole page advertising the very next day after this whole debacle had happened on Twitter? And don't you think that this is the classical example of I am telling the truth, and the public, that there is one chapter specifically where you talk about public relation foxpaw?
Public relations blunder is a big thing which affects organizations. I think here WhatsApp did a massive public relations blunder. They should have realized that there are competition waiting to take over WhatsApp. For instance, if you're in China, WhatsApp doesn't work, WeChat works. And WeChat is singularly more popular there, and it is so much more simple. And there are so many others which are right there waiting to take over the space of WhatsApp. WhatsApp was bought by Facebook for $18 billion. For whatever reason, $18 billion they wanted to encash today. What did WhatsApp trying to do? What is Facebook trying to do? Facebook is trying to access the name and number of all the WhatsApp users. They're not going to look into your and mine, my messages, because that's not the purpose. It's to access the data of the users. It all went wrong. It all went wrong for days together. People then started saying, they will take my bank account, they will take my telephone number, they will look into my bank account, they will look into my transactions, they will also look into my love life. Nonsense. That's there. Neither they will do, neither it is they are interested in. But it was a public relations disaster. The day they did this Facebook, WhatsApp move, the next day itself, people started talking about it. They should have come out with a clarification within few hours, not wait for 2 weeks for Signal to take over, for Telegram to take over. Now, most of my friends are already on Signal, and Signal is working perfectly all right. So why will I go back to WhatsApp? Unnecessarily, they have just cut the branch on which they were sitting. It is a PR disaster, and there are hundreds and thousands of them, which happens all the time.
So this PR, particularly public relation, plays a very important role whenever a company is establishing itself or it's already established. So, sir, what is that one tip that you will give to the public PR representative or the communication specialists, right? What is that one tip that you will give them? And there's one thing that you have also talked about is there should be one man or one person contact of a point of contact for any privacy for any newspaper house to reach you, right? Can you throw some light on that point, sir?
If you're talking about the one point, that point is PR must come up front and try to tell the truth. People cannot be fooled by saying the incorrect stuff. If the company has made a blunder, if the company has done something wrong, for instance, let's say the Bhopal gas tragedy couldn't have been worse than that. If the PR guys comes and say next day on the morning that yes, there has been a gas leak, it was not a human desire, it was a human error. Even if when the people are dying, people will believe it's a human error. But what happens most of the time, the companies wants to hide it. And they say, okay, it will fly off, people will forget, don't worry, don't go into television, don't into newspapers, it will automatically die. It doesn't work. So therefore, the one tip I have is that please go up front and tell the truth. 9 out of 10 cases, truth always prevails. Truth will come out today, tomorrow, day after, and it works wonders in most of the cases.
Okay. So, sir, the final question that I will be having for you for the whole session is that with so many years of experience, sir, what do you think is the golden rule to running a business, whether you may be an entrepreneur or whether you may be a professional who has already worked so many years in corporate world? So what is that one thing that you will be telling them? So what is that golden rules that you will, can you share some 4 to 5 of them, sir, with us?
We are talking about business mistakes. And one of the dream of business managers is to avoid business mistakes. And the word dream, DREAM, I will use it an acronym as to what we all need to do. The ones which we need to avoid, and chances are that success will come. DREAM. D means debt. Debt is a debt trap. Try to avoid it. There is no easy money. So first is D, debt. R is risk. Manage risk. Every business has a risk. The mistake we do is we believe our businesses are out of risk, beyond risk. No risk cannot be. There is no business which does not have a risk. Risk management is the next thought. DR. E. I told you there are 2 reasons why businesses goes belly up. 1, too much of debt, and second, fraud. E is ethics. Do not compromise on ethics. You cannot fool all the people all the time. You can fool some people sometime. And this lack of ethics, cutting corner, doing some hanky-panky, money laundering, not paying the bank back, taking the money from the bank by telling lies, all these are short-term areas. Please avoid it. Avoid taking too much of debt. Avoid not thinking of risk. Avoid not taking ethical step. A, we already discussed acquisition. Acquisition, this inorganic growth, mergers and acquisition is a big mistake many of the time we do. So be careful not to make an acquisition, and the kill the company, the golden goes which you are in. And the last one is M. The biggest mistake we do is not to employ the right manpower. Business is all about people. We are all as good as our people. No business is made of bricks and mortars. Business always consists of people. And a big mistake businesses do is to employ or take advice of the wrong people. Do not make a mistake. Don't take too much of debt. Think about your risk management. Don't compromise on ethics. Please don't do a wrong acquisition. It will kill a golden geese. And do not make a mistake of not employing the wrong people, right people. Management is all what you need to do. And DREAN, your dream will come true.
Thank you so much, sir. This is finally the book, and there will be fumbles, there will be follies, and there will be a lot of mistakes that you will be making. But there's one thing that we all know for the matter of fact is that we should not shy away from mistakes. And secondly, we need to understand and get experience from the mistakes others are committing so that we know that these are the things we should be avoiding. I think we all should, the management students specifically, and all the other students as well, they should definitely read this book. And this is one of the most important books when it comes to management students. And it is also about how you can make your dream come true. As Robin sir had already talked about how to make that dream come true. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. And thank you so much, Manisha ma'am. Thank you so much, Robin sir, for joining in us. Thank you
Thank,
so much.
thank you.
Have a nice weekend. Have a nice weekend.